Hey everybody, it's Dave here from Dragonhill Games. So KALAMAX is one of the most powerful and versatile commanders ever printed. He has the ability to go infinite with just one card, or send your opponents packing with just a single swing. No matter how you choose to build your KALAMAX deck, here are some cards you'll want to be including. Before we get into things, let's examine what we're getting out of KALAMAX the Stormsire. So KALAMAX is in Temur colors. So for 1 red, 1 blue, 1 green, and 1, we get a legendary creature. He's an elemental dinosaur, and he's a 4/4. Whenever you cast your first instant spell each turn, if KALAMAX the Stormsire is tapped, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. And whenever you copy an instant spell, put a +1/+1 counter on KALAMAX. Alright, let's get into some value includes that should be in every KALAMAX build. Rhystic Study speaks for itself and is an auto include in almost every commander deck running blue. I mean, who doesn't want more card draw, right? Same sort of thing with Cyclonic Rift. This card is just too good to be not included in every blue deck. Merchant Scroll lets us grab out a combo piece like Expansion Explosion, a much needed counterspell, or perhaps a buff for KALAMAX. Mystical Tutor is kind of interesting in that it doesn't directly benefit from KALAMAX because of the shuffle effect. However, since KALAMAX only copies the first instant you cast each turn, putting this on the stack after you have cast and copied a Brainstorm, for example, seems pretty good. On the control side of things, cards like Beast Within, Krosan Grip, and Chaos Warp all seem like obvious choices. But little known cards like Tribute to the Wild are very effective when they become copied. For just 1 green mana and 1 colorless at instant speed, we can force each opponent to sacrifice an artifact or enchantment. Forcing each opponent into sacrificing 2 artifacts or enchantments for just 2 mana is absolutely ridiculous. There are also a few traps that become super powerful when doubled up by KALAMAX. Whiplash Trap will send any 4 of your opponent's creatures back to their hands for just 1 blue mana, provided someone other than yourself has had 2 creatures enter the battlefield this turn. And Baloth Cage Trap is even more impressive. For just 1 green and 1 colorless, we are going to get 2 4/4 beasts if an opponent casts an artifact this turn. And finally, under the right circumstances, Archive Trap is off the hook. For 0 mana, we can force an opponent to mill 26 cards off the top of their deck. Here, you don't need this quarter of your deck. Let me take care of that for you. As far as creatures go, no matter what your strategy is with KALAMAX, here are a few that you will probably want to include. Omnath Locus of the Royal should make its way into your deck. Even if you're not particularly employing an elemental strategy, Omnath is still really good value. His ETB gives us some removal, and his static ability that allows us to put a +1/+1 counter on an elemental every time we have a land enter the battlefield will help constantly make KALAMAX bigger. This is especially useful if you're employing a Voltron type strategy, and of course the extra card draw always comes in handy. Risen Reef is a no-brainer. It gives us immediate value, and if you are on curve to play KALAMAX, then you'll be getting an extra card draw when he enters play and every time you have to replay him. Seems pretty solid. And don't forget about Eternal Witness. The only thing better than doing a lot of nasty things is getting to do them twice. And well, with Eternal Witness, I guess you get to do those things 4 times. Giddy up. Card draw seems like a pretty solid line to be taking with KALAMAX. I mean, who doesn't want a mitt full of ammo, right? Of course, things like Brainstorm and Anticipate are really good options. But cards like Stroke of Genius are incredible value. For just 3 mana and X, we get to draw 2 times X cards. Pull from Tomorrow is another excellent option. For just 2 blue and X, we get to draw twice X cards and then pitch 2. Both of these are super solid includes in any KALAMAX build. Another thing to consider with KALAMAX is that in order for him to be effective, he needs to be tapped. Now, we're not always going to want to attack with him in order to achieve this. Sometimes that just won't be desirable or practical. So every build should have a few ways to tap down KALAMAX without forcing him into an attack. Let's look at how we can accomplish this safely. My go-to choice would definitely be Earthcraft. This 2 mana enchantment allows us to tap an untapped creature and then untap a basic land. This is perfect because we can essentially use KALAMAX as mana ramp, giving us 2 uses of any one basic while keeping KALAMAX tapped down, which is what we want anyway. Other fantastic options include things like Paradise Mantle, which acts in a similar fashion to Earthcraft. And Whisper Silk Cloak is particularly useful at providing both protection for KALAMAX with the Shroud ability and being able to tap him down with the Unblockable, although not the best choice if you're running a lot of buff spells. The least desirable option, but they do get the job done, is vehicles. You can use KALAMAX to crew things like Smuggler's Copter for some extra card draw, or Heart of Kirin provides a nice beater as well as a solid defender, especially in the early game. Ramping feels pretty natural in this deck. Growth Spiral is amazing in that for just 2 mana we draw 2 cards and put 2 lands into play. And Harrow is crazy good. At the cost of just 3 mana and 1 of our lands, we can search out 4 basics and drop them into play. Doing this is actually net 1 mana positive. What is even more disgusting is if we have Omnath Locus of the Royal in play, we are loading up KALAMAX with counters and quite possibly even drawing more cards. Hang on, this just keeps getting better. Alright, before we get to some of the really gross things we can do with this guy, let's look at how we can remove target player from the game with a single swing. Berserk turns KALAMAX into an absolute monstrosity. Let's walk through what happens when we Berserk. Berserk goes on the stack, which triggers KALAMAX and creates a second copy of Berserk, which also goes on the stack. This in turn triggers KALAMAX's second ability, which goes on the stack last. Now everything resolves last in, first out. Counter on KALAMAX, making him a 5/5, followed by the copy of Berserk, making him a 10/5, and finally the original spell resolves, making him a 20/5 with Trample. Throw something as simple as Giant Growth into the mix and KALAMAX would be a 32/8. As you can imagine, it's pretty easy for him to one-shot somebody. You could even do something like this, since KALAMAX would be on the way back to the command zone anyway. Alright, last but not least, let's explore how we can go infinite with KALAMAX and what we can do with all of this infinite goodness. Okay, let's first understand how the infinite loop works. Ugh, I hate this stuff, but here goes. We need something like Reiterate, Reverberate, or Expansion Explosion. Essentially, they all do the same thing, copy an instant or sorcery. Now, we will need to first cast a sorcery if it's our turn, or have an opponent cast an instant or sorcery if it's their turn. Let's say, for example, one of your opponents decides to hit your KALAMAX with a Swords to Plowshares. Oh, goody goody gumdrops. Let's copy the STP with a Reverberate and target their commander with the copy. You know, an eye for an eye and all that stuff. But wait, we're just getting started to punish everyone at the table for our opponent's misgivings. Enter KALAMAX's ability. Since we cast our first instant, we get to copy it. We copy Reiterate, which we then use to copy the original Reiterate, which then makes a copy of the original Reiterate, which we then use the copy to copy the original Reiterate, which then makes a new copy of the original Reiterate, which we then use to copy the original Reiterate, to infinity and beyond! Since KALAMAX's ability is a May, we can stop the process at any time, and oh yeah, each time we are making a copy, we put a +1/+1 counter on KALAMAX, making him essentially infinitely huge. Alright, so imagine you do all this with Ral Storm Conduit in play. So Ral has a static ability that states whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Ral Storm Conduit deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. So when we enter our infinite loop, or technically near infinite loop, Ral essentially is going to blast everyone into oblivion. And if the judge will allow it, you can blast everyone in the commander game behind you into oblivion too. Alright, I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. What would you include in your KALAMAX deck? What have I missed? Why don't you let me know in the comments section below? And hey, if you're already a subscriber, I want to thank you for being here. We really appreciate your support. And if not, now's a great time to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We post at least 2 videos every week. All right, bye for now.